Welcome back to another video here on the Washington Football Maniacs YouTube channel. And this channel is dedicated to the Washington Commanders, soon to be one of the best franchises in the NFL if Josh Harris has anything to do with it. So you're going to want to make sure that you have subscribed to this channel. When you do, make sure you have hit the notification bell so we never miss another video release. I'm Greg Sykes. I got my buddy here, Brandon Scott, with me. And folks, we're going to talk about a lot that is happening. A lot, I'm telling you, that has happened in the past couple of days. As you all know, of course, we have talked about it. Ron Rivera, of course, he was getting fired yesterday. Honestly, I think he knew about it Sunday. Happy birthday, Ron Rivera. Happy belated birthday. But, you know, I think he knew about it Sunday. But come Monday, as soon as that was announced, here we have Josh Harris turning around and announcing that he had a couple of buddies coming in. Was it Bob Meyer from the Golden State Warriors,
Yep.
Being a very big part of that, former GM, given his expertise on what it's going to take to be a Super Bowl champion, even though that, yes, he's on the basketball side, but he's a smart guy. Spillman, bringing in Rick Spillman as well to be a part of the committee that was going to set out to try to find the next head of football operations. And, you know, we're thinking, okay, it's going to take a while because you're going to set up this committee and then they need to get together and go through all the, you know, the documentation and the write-ups of everybody, Brandon, and, you know, it's going to take a little while to sort out. No. Josh Harris says, we're going to do this rapidly, but it's going to be thoroughly. And he didn't lie to us, Brandon.
No.
He went through this rapidly. He already started lining up candidates as soon as that we heard that he brought these other two guys on. And then we're hearing these candidates like Adam Peters, Ian Cunningham, Mike Berganza, and I believe also Glenn Cook, and a few of these guys have already been interviewed. Adam Peters, as we speak, being interviewed in Miami, and probably sent down to a really nice dinner with Josh Harris right now. Honestly, I know that this video actually is going to be more based on our choices for head coach, but I really want to touch upon the general manager or the head of football operations position. Adam Peters actually is my choice, although I'll be honest with you, didn't really know a lot about these guys, but after hearing the names, I kind of started reading up on them. I'm like, okay, all right, so we've got the best of the candidates here. So, you know, if honestly, Brandon, I'm thinking one of these guys is likely, with the breakneck speed that they're going with this, one of these guys is probably going to be hired by the end of the week.
Yeah.
And which means we're turning our attentions toward our next head coach. So this guy, along with the committee, is going to start to look at these candidates for the next head coach for the Washington Commanders. And if we're looking at that, we're looking at, of course, everybody's top pick, Bill Belichick. No, just kidding.
Oh, God. Oh!
I was going to get you on that one. No, everybody's top pick. We all seem to agree that we really like Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. That's my pick. That's my favorite. But I'll tell you a close second to him, who I think is going to be the next Ben Johnson, is Texans offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick. I really like Bobby. He comes from the Mike Shanahan coaching tree. His father was a coach as well, so comes from a coaching family. I think he may be a guy that you might want to consider given a head coaching position. Maybe it's a little too early. Maybe we should wait until the next head coaching cycle. Of course, we can't wait, but maybe you go ahead and you give that to him. Who knows? But he's one of the names. And then you got Mike McDonald, who is a DC for the Ravens, Cowboys DC. I know people are going to start nodding their head about retreads, but you got Dan Quinn. I think Dan Quinn, he's leader of men. He has really built that defense up in Dallas. He's done an excellent job. And of course, he led the Atlanta Falcons a few years ago to the Super Bowl. He's led that Falcons team to several winning seasons. A very good choice, I think, and he has officially accepted an interview with the Commanders as well as Ben Johnson, I believe, as well. And then, of course, you got another defensive coordinator, Raheem Morris, who was in Washington a few years back, I believe, as a defensive backs coach. Lions DC, Aaron Glenn, and then Ravens, Anthony Weaver. And then I feel like we're missing somebody else, but I know there's been some talk of Jim Harbaugh. I don't know if that's going to be a serious one or not, but I think the Commanders have reached out to Jim Harbaugh as well. And they may have kicked the tires a little bit with Bill Belichick, but honestly, I think Bill Belichick honestly would be the reason why I would interview Bill Belichick, Brandon, is just basically because he's got a wealth of information. And you interview him to get a wealth of information from Bill Belichick. I would not hire him personally because I just feel like, again, I'm not trying to be ageism, but he is 71 years old. How long are you going to have him for? He has been used to having the keys to the kingdom. And we also have heard talks about, well, Jim Harbaugh wants that as well. So that may be a hard no if Jim Harbaugh is very adamant about wanting to have personnel decisions. So those two things probably would be the reason why I would not want Bill Belichick. But Brandon, I'm going to ask you your top three candidates for a head coach next season. I think I have my top three in my mind. Who do you think would be your top three and why?
Oh, good question, man. Number one, Ben Johnson. I think that he will be the guy. I think that Harbaugh would be, because there are reports that they have definitely are interested in interviewing him. And obviously, just winning the national title, he's got a lot of buzz. And we're not the only team. There's a lot of teams are going to be willing to throw some serious money at Harbaugh, especially after winning the national title, beating University of Washington, which has a quarterback prospect who, some people have a little buzz within the organization in Washington. But Ben Johnson, I mean, what he's done with that Detroit Lions offense, man. I mean, what can you say? I mean, Detroit went from not being anything to he got a lot out of Jared Goff, man. And that is one key because, Jared Goff went from being in the Super Bowl with the Rams to being traded for Matthew Stafford to kind of in purgatory in Detroit, but not anymore because he's really got Jared Goff looking like a really good NFL starter. And depending, if we go in the draft, go Caleb Williams or Drake May, or if we somehow stick with Sam Howell, either way, you got a guy who's going to get the best out of the quarterback position. He's going to put the quarterback in the best position to be successful and win in the NFL. So I love, because, we were talking about before the show, man, is that, just like any other job, they look at your resume. What have you done? And what he's done in Detroit, absolutely. I know right now he's a rising star. His salary he's asking for, we'll see, kind of very optimistic, but I mean, the young man can coach. So I think that's definitely my number one choice. Number two, Harbaugh. I mean, he formerly of San Francisco 49ers. He has success in the NFL. It's hard to really go from college to the NFL because there's a lot of bad examples. If you look at Nick Saban, obviously he's a college coach who's found a lot of success at Alabama, but people forget that he was a coach at the Dolphins one time, and it did not last for very long. So it's tough to really find coaches, and there's other coaches. What's this guy that used to coach for the Eagles? He came out of
Chip Kelly.
Chip Kelly, boom.
Yes.
College coaches, it's really a mixed bag, but he's got NFL experience. I think he would be a really, really good candidate. Three, that's hard, man, because the rest of the guys that you named, I'm just not. I mean, the coordinator with the Texans, I'm with you. Good young coach. I think that would be my number three, absolutely, because what he's done. Look at the Houston Texans. They're a playoff team. I mean, they drafted their guy and C.J. Stroud. He got a lot out of unknown wide receivers. Tank Dell. I mean, let's be honest, who really knew who Tank Dell was before? If you weren't a Texans fan, but the guy was rolling. I mean, Nico Collins, they got a lot out of that team. So that would be my three, Greg. Definitely the guy out of Houston. I think he definitely could be a good candidate. Harbaugh, the name, the success in San Francisco, yeah, but Ben Johnson, I think, and we're going to talk about GM because we're going to talk about the link between Bob Myers and the GM out of San Francisco because there's a link there. But before we do, Ben Johnson, if I put my money on it, he will be the next head coach of the Washington Commanders.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like Ben Johnson right now, he's the leading candidate, but he's also the leading candidate on everybody's team that needs a quarterback or a head coach. So we're going to have some stiff competition between all of these other teams for Ben Johnson. And Ben Johnson has already said, if you want me, this is what it's going to cost.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, I think Ben Johnson is going to look at some of the situations and some of these other franchises, and he's going to be like, okay, that's not really the best situation for me. You can look at Carolina and he can say, well, I do have a young quarterback who may have some promise, but there's a lot of mess there. And there's quite frankly, there's an owner who is a meddling owner, a la kind of like Dan Snyder, and I'm not sure if I really want to put myself in that situation. Really, when you look at it, you look at the Raiders, and the Raiders, honestly, I think they should keep Antonio Pierce.
Yep,
I think he's done a really good job, so I would give that job to Antonio Pierce. But if they don't, maybe that's a decent place to go. But then again, you got Mark Davis, and I'm not sure if that's necessarily the best place to go to either. And as well, I think they're not really great with the cap right now. So honestly, Washington does seem to be the best place in terms of a location for any of these candidates. So I think Ben Johnson probably would, if he's thinking of moving on from the Lions and becoming a head coach, I would think that he would be looking at Washington and feeling like that would be the best location first. And of course that's my number one pick. To your point, what he's done with Jared Goff. A lot of people had kind of ridden Jared Goff, off when he got moved on from the LA Rams. It's they move around so much. It's hard. I started to say the St. Louis Rams, So honestly, he's done a great job with that offense, and so I'm just. I'm excited for what he might be able to bring if he does get chosen. If it's not him, I do like Bobby Slowick because I think we would like to go with an offensive-minded coach, but we also like to go with an up-and-comer. And what Bobby Slowick has done, you mentioned the wide receivers, but also what he's done with C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud has had an excellent year being a rookie, and so having such a young offense to work with, and Bobby, just not really having a whole lot of experience. Really, honestly, looks like another Sean McVay in the making. So he's a hot commodity. Honestly, I would give him a shot. I would give him a shot. I think he's worth it. The third one I've really went back and forth on because, of course, I made a video on this not too long ago, and I said, I think my third one. So I'm probably repeating myself on this, but I said Jim Harbaugh. But I've honestly been going back and forth. Yeah, there's so many reasons to get Jim Harbaugh. He just coached the Michigan Wolverines to a national championship. He's won everywhere he's went. He's won in the NFL. He's taken the San Francisco 49ers to the Super Bowl. Yeah. So, why would you not want him? And some people may say, well, he's crazy. He carries a lot of baggage with him, and why would you want baggage in Washington? That's a good point. That might be something that you might want to say could be suspect. But I like Jim Harbaugh. But you know what? I don't know why, but I keep thinking Dan Quinn. I keep thinking about him. And I know it's a defensive coordinator, defensive-minded coach, but he had a lot of success in Atlanta. And I think the reason why that things started to go south with him, with the Falcons was that they started plucking all of his coaches and some of his star players away from him, and just got to the point where he just didn't have nothing left. And so he was kind of left as the scapegoat, and so they eventually got rid of him. But obviously, you've seen what he's done since he's come to Dallas. I mean, he has really built that defense up, and he's got an outstanding defense. He is a player's coach. People love to follow Dan Quinn, so honestly, I would love to see Dan Quinn have another shot. Now, I know what people are going to say. They're going to be like, this is just Ron Rivera all over again. It's a good point. I mean, it's a good point. But I think Dan Quinn, I don't know. I just feel like that I don't think it would be Ron Rivera all over again. I think he's had a little bit more success than Ron Rivera. I would definitely consider him. But probably, if not Dan Quinn, maybe Jim Harbaugh. But definitely my number one, number two is locked in at Ben Johnson and Bobby Slowick. I just I want the young up and comers. I just think that's what you need because they're a little bit more creative, and they're the ones who tend to really just decide the direction of how these offenses are going to go. And if you're going to have somebody like Caleb Williams, who's likely to get drafted, or Drake May, then you want a young quarterback who can get with a young, creative mind, offensive mind, and be able to put that together and make it work. So I can see that trifecta there, the excellent general manager who knows how to find the right personnel to fit what you need, that young, great offensive-minded head coach, and then that what you hope is that great elite quarterback there. If you can get all that, you can hit on all that, you're going to be successful.
Yeah, I agree, man. Dan Quinn is definitely an intriguing candidate, man. Like you said, I liked him in Atlanta. I'm with you on that. I think he kind of didn't get a fair shake. But here's the thing you need to kind of look at when it comes to Commanders. Very, very, if not the most attractive job right now, because you're looking at, you got a foundation on this team. You're not starting from scratch. You definitely have good pieces on this team. You just got to figure out what can work with them. Look at, and then, like I said, it's probably another whole episode. But I mean, offensively, you got a nice receiving core. You just got to, make moves in off season here or there. But they have a foundation. $90 million, and that's just starting out. And cap room, $90 million, which I believe is number one in the NFL. They have spending money. Just go spend in free agency and build the team up. 4 picks in the first 100 picks. I mean, this is definitely an attractive job. So I think that if I'm gonna put money on it, Ben Johnson's gonna be the next head coach because Harbaugh, the name's there, but and I wouldn't be surprised if they made that decision. Stolik out of Houston, like I said, big fan of him. I'm glad you said something because he was definitely an under the radar guy that I don't think really gets the credit that he's due, man, as far as what he's done with CJ Stroud and getting that Houston Texas team. They're looking good. They're a playoff team, which let's be real, nobody had the Houston Texans as a playoff team before the year. No way. And if you did, I mean, if you said you did, you're lying, man. Stop it. I mean, you didn't. So I think that here's the biggest thing, man, is that we have a lot of choices. We've got a owner who's ready to roll. He ain't Dan Snyder. Dan Snyder would sit on his hands and then go out there and throw a bunch of money at anybody and expect everything to change. You got a guy who's business minded. Behind Josh Harris knows how to win. Philadelphia 76ers have been contenders the last 10 years. I believe, and then they have their issues, but they are a team that has always been a force in the Eastern Conference in the NBA. New Jersey Devils, same, a lot of success. He's a local guy. He wants to make a mark. He wants to get his team back to where it used to be. Same thing with Magic. Everything that Magic Johnson touches makes money. I mean, I'm just saying, you look at his success, man. He knows how to make money, and he knows that how do you make money? You got to bring people to the stadium. What brings people to the stadium? A winning product on the field, but also you need to know that you have those marquee names that are running the team. I mean, you mentioned Adam Peters, man. If you look at the connection between him and Bob Myers, they have a connection. And like I said, if I'm a betting man, which I am, I don't know if you can bet on FanDuel. I'll check it out, but I'm going to bet Ben Johnson's head coach, and I'm going to bet that Adam Peters is the GM because that connection with Bob Myers, I think, is not an accident. I think that we both said that looking at resumes, what San Francisco, how they've been built up to where they are, I think is very impressive. And I think that with him being involved with that, Adam Peters is definitely a guy that I would definitely recommend. But I'm not going to ever step real quick because I know we're going to talk about GMs. But getting back to head coaching, yeah, Ben Johnson is that his name, his age, everything works out. It just checks all the boxes for me. I think he's, depending on the quarterback. Sam Howell, he has a lot of promise, man. And would I be surprised if they stuck with him? A little bit, because I think the organization is trying to take a step forward with a new at that position. But I don't think he's a guy that, definitely thank him for his service, man. He dealt with a bad line. He dealt with a lot of things, and he definitely regressed. But maybe they take a chance to see what he can do as far as Ben Johnson what he can do with Sam Howell. And maybe, because like I said, Jared Goff was kind of in a similar situation where, he was a high upside quarterback, but he needed somebody to come in and work on his mechanics, work on certain things, and look at Jared Goff now. He's a guy he's a force to be reckoned with at the quarterback position. So maybe we see what he can do with Sam. But, that's the thing. They're going to make major changes. I'm telling you, it is a complete overhaul. I mean, they're going to rebuild this team in 1 year, man. I'm saying right now, because I'm trying to tell you, Greg, things are looking up. So, in my opinion, in the draft, there's a lot of options there, too. And we're going to talk about it. I'm not even going to get into it. But I expect to make a splash. And I would not be surprised to go Caleb Williams, Drake May. But I'm not going to get ahead of myself. But, yeah, Ben Johnson, he needs to come to D.C. He's the guy. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think we're going to miss on head coach. I think more than ever, because that things are so attractive. And if you sat and you watched Josh Harris's press conference, you can't help but to be impressed by Josh. I mean, he wasn't necessarily the most articulate person, pot calling the kettle black, but at the same time, he was straight and to the point. And and he said, look, losing was terrible. Us owners were sweating it just like fans were. We hate it, and we don't want to lose anymore. So we are not going to do this. We want to rebuild this. And he said if I was writing the script, we would rebuild this and have it rebuilt in one year. Now, it may take a little bit longer than that, but I'm telling you, he is working at this at a breakneck speed. And, so my hat's off. He's doing everything he possibly can. It's funny, though, that he's doing everything that we felt like we were trying to get Dan Snyder to think about. It's like, stay out of it, or at least if you're going to be a part of it, get some guys around you who know how to find the right people to put in the right positions and help you out, and then stay out of it. And, of course, Dan Snyder would never do that. Well, Josh Harris comes in and he does exactly that. He's hiring these people who have had the success, who knows what it takes to make a sports franchise successful.
Yeah.
And then we hear Mike Flora and other media people come out and bash Josh Harris for doing so, and saying, like, are you that dumb that you don't see it? It's like even your own fans see who you need to get. And I'm like, come on. That type of you're reaching for one thing.
Yeah.
And number two, this is not Dan Snyder anymore. That type of got to bash the Commanders sort of thing is over. This is a new era. Josh is a very well-respected, liked person. And of course, they were bashing him, with his other sports teams, saying, you haven't won a championship. You haven't turned those franchises around. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah. He has turned those franchises around. Yeah, he hasn't won a championship yet, but that doesn't mean that he hasn't turned those franchises around. It's just a matter of time. So he's doing everything he possibly can do, and I think he's doing the right thing. None of us fans are looking at what he has done and saying this guy's weak. This guy's admitting that he doesn't know what to do. No, he knows what he is doing, exactly what a businessman should do, who owns a sports franchise. Let's get other guys who have. It doesn't matter if it's football or if it's baseball, basketball, or if it's badminton. If that general manager or that exec, he knew how to help build that franchise into champions, it doesn't matter. It is a sports franchise at the end of the day. Yeah. He can help you bring in the people who's going to make those decisions, the football decisions. And so I think Harris is making all the right decisions. And folks, it's going to happen very quickly. Yeah. He's going to bring in all the right people. And honestly, I'm excited to see what we do in free agency this year. Yeah. I know we're all looking at the draft, but if we're doing all of this, this much excitement over finding our next head of football operations and the next head coach, imagine what we're going to be doing come free agency. I think a lot of us are going to have to take times off from our jobs just so we can sit in front of the computer and see what's next, because I'm telling you, with all that cap space, we're going to see the next Washington Commanders team, and it's going to be brilliant. We're seeing the start of, I think, something very special in Washington. So that's pretty much all I have with that. But I had to put that in there because I knew that a lot of us were waiting for the ball to drop on Ron on Monday, but I don't think any of us were expecting what was going to be announced next. And my hat's off to Josh for keeping all of that under wraps. Yeah. Like, nobody saw that coming.
Nobody.
And what's next? I mean, I know that some people had asked him during his press conference about the rebrand, and that did get under his skin a little bit. He never answered that, but he never shut the door on that either. Notice that. He never shuts the door on the rebrand. He never says, look, we're not going to do that. Don't worry about it. He never shuts the door. So, who's to say that there isn't already something working in the background behind closed doors? We don't know about it. And come the time for Washington to move into their new home, they're reintroduced as something else. That could happen. That is another video. I am not going to start rambling on that. But but anyway, folks, just let us know in the comments, who do you think should be the next head coach?
Oh yeah.
I know someone mentioned in one of my other posts, they said Deion Sanders. I appreciate your love for Prime. I love me some Prime as well, but no. He's got to be successful in the college ranks first before you just up and hire him as an NFL head coach. Yeah. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. So, just stop with that. One thing I will say before we leave, Brandon, I am very curious on this. No mention of Eric Bieniemy. No mention at all. I know that it was asked in the press conference, and Josh Harris did kind of answer it right, roundabout way of like, he'll get his chance, he'll get his interview. But he didn't really say anything about setting up an interview with Eric Bieniemy. Yeah. There's been, all of these other candidates that the Commanders have reached out to, several of these candidates, but none of them. And, of course, Eric Bieniemy's free to be interviewed.
Yeah.
And, and I'll say, I know this is going to sound bad, but, even if it was just going to be to satisfy the Rooney Rule, well, I mean, you got, you do have Raheem Harris. Am I getting that wrong? No, Raheem Morris.
Yeah,
Raheem Morris. I know that kind of satisfied. Actually, I think that he would be an interesting hire because a lot of players really love Raheem, and he hadn't really had much success as a head coach, so it would be kind of interesting. But he would satisfy the Rooney Rule. I'm just saying that. So by saying that and by getting him set up as an interviewee, and no Eric Bieniemy mentioned, pretty much tells me all I need to know. I don't think that Eric Bieniemy is going to be back next year in any capacity.
Nah, he's not coming back, man. I mean, I'm not 100% sure on that, but we'll see. Because this year, his play calling was kind of inconsistent. I think he didn't really properly utilize the person that we had. He's still using a lot of the tendencies he had at Kansas City. I mean, he made Sam Howell drop back an ungodly amount of times. I mean, he's got to utilize the run game. I think the jury's still out about how good of a coordinator he can be. I mean, the Kansas City, I think that it was kind of a mutual relationship. Like, I thought that he did have a lot to do with their success, and then I think they had a lot to do with his success. So, I think the jury's still out on how effective he can be, but who knows what they'll do. Maybe they bring him back next year, see what they can do under, a revitalized roster. Because, I mean, with him already being offensive coordinator, I mean, you don't have to fill that vacancy yet, man. We can look at GM, we can look at head coach, we can look at defensive coordinator. So, but we'll see. I mean, like I said, we said it all year long that everybody on this roster, including coaches, were coaching for their job. So, how this new regime views him is going to be, we'll see. But yeah,
absolutely. And I did watch a lot of the interviews of some of the players as they were cleaning out their lockers, and they were asked about Eric Bieniemy. And of course, some of them kind of gave the what I call the political answer.
Yeah.
Just they didn't really go right out and say, "Oh, I loved him" or "I hated him" or anything like that. They just talked about, we had some ups and downs and all this stuff, but we got to learn to execute a little bit better. Yeah. Not ever really blaming him, but not really praising him either. And then you had some others like Sam Cosmi, for instance, who really comes out and he was like very truthful. He said, "Look, to be honest with you, we should have ran the ball a whole lot more. We only ran the ball 30% of the time, and I like running the rock. And I think we need to just let us run the rock next year." And so, some other guys were a little bit more like that as well. Logan Thomas, I think, he talked about, we had some good things with him and some not so good things with him.
Yeah.
Oh, the overall feeling I got from some of those interviews was that I don't think that the players really overwhelmingly enjoyed Eric Bieniemy. So I honestly, I don't think he's back next year in any capacity, especially head coach.
Yeah.
and even if you do hire somebody like Dan Quinn, and Dan's like, "Hey, you want to hang on as the offensive coordinator?" I think he turns it down. So, but anyway, I just wanted to add that in, folks. We're going to wrap this up. But again, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, give it a share. Let us know how we did. 5 stars for anywhere that you see these podcasts.
Yeah.
And Brandon, you got anything else to say before we wrap it up?
No, sir. Looking forward to brighter days for the Washington Commanders. So I'm excited.
Absolutely. All right, folks. Take care. We will see you in the next one. Hail to the Washington Commanders. And peace.
Peace.